My mum is Spanish and my dad is English. They obviously met and fell in love and went on to have 4 children. I was the youngest one. Every year we would go back and forth to Spain on holiday and things. When I was 11 or 12, I went to deaf school, and I stayed there. It was a boarding school. But every year in the summer, I couldn't stand the fact I had to go to summer school. I would cry and get really upset about it because I just didn't want to go to Spanish summer school. I mean, my parents couldn't understand why I didn't want to go and why I got so upset. They didn't understand why I didn't want to go to Spain or the summer school. I mean, I didn't understand why I had to go to the school. I didn't want to go. Anyway, I'd go to Spain and I'd get really nervous. But then my parents were like, no, you have to go to summer school. They got really firm with me and said, no, you must go. So off I'd go, and I'd sit there in the classroom quite sulkily, to be honest. At the start, I was quite a sulky little child. And most of the time, the teacher would speak in English, then she'd also teach us in Spanish, but I loved the fact I could learn I did sign language with all my deaf friends. And growing up, I'd got quite an affinity with the Spanish sign language. It wasn't until I was a bit older that I realised sign languages were different in different countries. I think I first started to realise when I was about 12. Because I went to deaf school, and that's when I realised that British Sign Language and Spanish Sign Language are in fact different. I thought, I'll be fine going to deaf school. I know sign language, it'll be the same, not a problem. But it was so different. I mean, the alphabets were different. It's one-handed in Spain and it's two-handed in English. The way they signed mother and father was different. They didn't sign cousin the same way. It was different again. And how the Spanish signed family and brother and sister were signed differently. Just so many changes. It took me a while to take it on board. And something else that really threw me was the days of the week. The way they're signed in Spain is a lot different. It was very confusing to start with. Quite a shock to the system, to be honest. But I did pick it up quite quickly, and it wasn't too much of a problem in the end. And I finally learned how to sign with my deaf British friends. And then in the summer, I'd go to Spain, and I'd have no problem switching around into Spanish Sign Language, so I could speak to my Spanish deaf friends. But they were still very, very different. Anyway, I went travelling, and I went to France. And I wanted to sign with people. I found that I couldn't do Spanish Sign Language. Only a little bit, there was little bits of it that were the same. Little bits of British Sign Language were in there as well, but it was different. So in the end, I had to take bits from British Sign Language and bits from Spanish Sign Language, and sort of throw it into an almost international sign language just to try and communicate with people. I did get by okay. That was quite a while ago. Spanish and British deaf cultures are so different. And obviously Spain has a deaf culture, but it's very mingled and varied. Some people are very, very direct. There's no beating around the bush. Whereas I find the British deaf people can go quite around the houses to get to a point. In Spanish deaf culture, it's very, never mind anyone's feelings, it's very straight to the point, whereas in British deaf culture, you'd worry about what other people thought. Am I going to upset anybody? So although Spanish culture is very direct, you could get involved in a group very easily. There was no sort of separateness, and there was loads of different groups. Your conversations would all cross over. It could get quite confusing. But at least no one was ever shut out. It was never sort of secretive. And sometimes someone you didn't know would come and get involved in the conversation. It was very easy to come and go and chat with people. I found it quite hard to get involved with the British deaf culture. Sometimes I'd try and get involved in a conversation. You'd go over to people and they wouldn't even look up at you. They'd just be ignoring you. It was quite difficult for me to take at first. But now I've taken on board both cultures and I understand that their differences.